All right then, gamers, it's the final set of reveals, the deep dives for the elite specializations from Visions of Eternity. And first up, it's going to be Revenant, the Conduit is what we're going over here. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So as we saw from the teaser, we are going to be channeling RAZAH, the legendary entity is the name of the stance, and the other key mechanic is going to be Cosmic Wisdom. It's all about empowering the usage of your legends, both the entity stance and any other one that you might have there as well. The utility skills also link up with what other stance you have too, and a couple of the traits have those interactions there as well. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's dive into this. It's a pretty interesting one, I think. And good news, bit of a spoiler here. I've been pretty critical of some of the trait design of the other heavy professions, specifically Warrior and Guardian, of course, with the Luminary on Guardian and the Paragon on Warrior. Good news! The trait design looks good here. So we weren't going 3 for 3 on heavies, having some pretty mediocre traits. It is, in fact, going to be some much more interesting stuff here on the Conduit, and I'm actually feeling really happy. I'm almost like spoiling it a bit here. I'm feeling really happy actually about the utility skill design and the trait design of the legendary entity of the Conduit. Couple of issues though, but let's go ahead and talk about that. So what's actually going on here? We've of course got our legendary entity stance, and here is kind of the key profession mechanic. This is what's replacing the core Rev F2. We get this ability called Cosmic Wisdom. 20-second ability, 20-second cooldown ability, and what you do is that you are going to invoke the legend that you have, and get a bonus based on what stance you're in, right? Or rather, like what what legend you're currently channeling. So you can see here that as the Dervish, right, with the entity stance, you're going to channel the form of a Dervish, gaining bonus all stats, and when you hit a target while you've got this effect up, you're also going to get a magical scythe, which deals damage there as well. And that's kind of like the blueprint for this. You are going to get bonus stats, and then you're also going to get an on-hit effect, okay? And the duration starts out relatively low at 4 seconds, but you have a mechanic as well, a resource that you can build up called Affinity that you generate from using abilities that have energy. It's defaulted to utility skills, but there's also a trait that allows you to use weapon skills to build Affinity as well. And each point of Affinity you have is going to extend this effect out for 3 seconds. And that's actually it. Like this, it's a fairly simple one mechanically, and that's actually kind of like the first point of criticism here. I think we need an extra button here. Would be my initial impression. And that will become a lot more obvious why I think that as we go over this. But the actual elite spec mechanic is very passive. It's not super active here. Of course, you do need to activate it to press this button, but it's not, it only kind of augments what you already have there. And I get that's kind of the theme. What they were kind of going for here is kind of the Guild Wars 1 dervish forms, basically. So Avatar of Melandra, Avatar of Dwayna, Avatar of Lissa, right? And so on and so on. That's kind of what they were going for here. And the visuals are pretty cool, though, actually. Look at this. So this is like with the dervish thing. You can see the scythes coming from the auto attacks, right? They kind of generate some AoE damage. But I would say that is the first key point here talking about the Conduit, is that it is a pretty passive stat sticky thing. It's very much core Rev plus. So I think it needs a little bit more. Probably an extra button or some other way to interact with it. Almost a bit like the Ritualist, right? You know, when you have the Ritualist, you can summon your spirits, which are, you know, passive and they're doing things, but they have an active component, 1, when you summon them, and 2, you can detonate them as well. I think that's the kind of depth that we need to see here, to be honest, or maybe some kind of interplay between the Cosmic Wisdom and your utility skills in some way. I just think it needs a bit more interplay, linking all the mechanics together. It needs a bit more depth. That's what I feel like the Conduit is lacking. And, you know, again, as you can see, like as we're going to go over this, it's going to be pretty obvious why I think that. So that's the one there. With that, they're just demonstrating Affinity here. And look, I've got to point this out, guys. Really? Okay. 3 tiny little rectangles for this really important thing that's going to interact with your class mechanic? Really, ArenaNet? Come on, man. I think we can do it better than that. Like, you know, make it like Gale Shot around the HP bar or something and make it a whole lot bigger. This is, what is this? Like an indicator for ants? Are we serious? Come on. We can do better than that. It's not very visually clear, but you can see here, we're moving over. So that first one there, that avatar of the dervish, right, is going to give us this extra damage effect with those scythes, with loads of extra stats, kind of like full celestial, so giga celestial at this point. The Malik's one, you can see here, is going to apply, you're going to get condition damage stats. So you're going to get condition damage and expertise, and then when you attack, you're going to inflict conditions, right? Random conditions, either bleeding, torment, or confusion. Guess what? You're going to use this on Conduit builds to do a bunch of damage. You can kind of see that here. Just kind of attacking away, and you can see the bleeding, the torment, and the confusion popping up. Over to the Centaur stance is going to be a bit of healing. Basically, Cosmic Wisdom Monk, you're going to get healing and vitality, and then you're going to get self-healing. This should probably be AoE healing. Maybe they were feeling conservative about this, but as of right now, this is actually a very selfish ability here on Dentaro, which feels kind of weird. When you attack, it's going to only heal you. It is going to generate you a lot of sustain. We're going to see this kind of used here. It's healing for 720 with every auto attack on sword. That's obviously quite a lot, especially when you're cleaving multiple targets, right? Because, you know, you're basically proccing this heal for every target you hit. So if you've got a 5-target weapon, for example, like Greatsword or something, you're obviously going to get a lot of value out of that. So that's that one there for the Mentari. And then next up, Assassin. Guess what? You get Ferocity and Power for the Shiro stance, and you're also going to be adding Vulnerability, Weakness, or Cripple as a kind of random thing there as well. And you know that's kind of nice, right? This is something that will also become pretty apparent. This spec feels very PvP coded to me. Even though this is passive, where I'm seeing this build make a whole lot of sense is PvP. Right, because you're getting these debilitating conditions, you're enhancing your abilities, right? There's a lot of like self-boon application, like selfish boon application in there, particularly for the more utility-oriented boons, like resistance, stuff like that. And that's kind of like, oh yeah, we're going to be owning people in PvP with this. And this is kind of the thing there as well, because again, applying weakness is really good in PvP. Applying cripple is really good in PvP, so you can stick to your target, especially with impossible odds. Because again, you're going to slam this, you've got impossible odds rolling, you're chasing down a target, you got more power, you got more ferocity, you're applying cripple, weakness, and vuln. You're going to be blasting people, right? With this, doing big damage to targets there. With this, and this is definitely going to be a hybrid spec. I can see this. There's some pretty gnarly trait interactions with stuff like Rev Spear that we'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, this is going to be a hybrid spec. You can 100% play this as a power build, as a Conduit build, or again, as a hybrid build, especially with that Dervish stance giving you all stats. Slap a bit of Selly gear on this, you're going to be a bit of a monster. Here's the Dwarf one, and hey, look, speak of the devil, this is what I was talking about, right? So you invoke the powers of a warrior, gaining toughness and concentration, so boon duration and a bit of toughness. And then you're also going to get random boons. I'm not a big fan of the randomness on this stuff, especially when it comes to really strong effects. Like you're going to randomly get resistance, protection, or resolution. Okay, we're talking about a Matrix film there or something. But you're going to get resolution whenever you strike a target. The resolution is 3 seconds, so you're going to get big uptime of that, a little bit less so on the prot or the resistance. There, but obviously this one is actually pretty damn powerful. Like being able to give yourself resistance is obviously really, really nice, especially if you've got a bit of boon duration. You might even get some decent uptime on that when you're hitting targets pretty frequently. You've got some pulsing AoEs, right? You've got your dwarf hammers spinning around there. You're going to have that damage reduction from the hammers, the self-healing, the output, and of course the free boons that are coming away from that at the same time. And that's basically the overview of that. And then it's going to be over to the utility skill. So we can kind of go ahead and kind of open up our glorious... Oh, look at the... Ooh, okay. But we're going to look at the utility skills here. So the heal skill. And the key mechanic here is that each of these utility skills from the entity stance will be enhanced in a pretty big way, actually, depending if you have the appropriate other legend swapped in. So in other words, if you've got Ventari, the heal skill is buffed. If you're running Shiro, then Beguiling Haze is going to get buffed. Dwarf, so Jalus, Gladiator's Defense, Hexeater Vortex is going to be for Malix, and then the elite skill is, look, we're going to have to show this on the video because this is, I think, the largest, most comical tooltip in the entire game, but well, we'll get to that in a moment. So first up is the heal skill. Shielding Hands. So you channel revitalizing energy that heals you with every pulse. While channeling, you take reduced strike and condition damage. Very powerful mitigation effect. It's 75% reduced incoming damage. Of course, the downside is you do have to channel that to get full value out of the heal, but that's a very powerful mitigation effect because, again, this is going to stack with other mitigation effects like protection. So if you pop this, you're essentially going to have like a little bit of breathing room. It kind of serves as both a heal, a recovery ability, but also a mitigation ability. So a lot of dual power there as well. And if you're Centaur stance, you get that Shielding Hands effect for 2 seconds afterwards. So you actually end up getting a very significant duration of this Shielding Hands ability, of course, inspired by Monk a little bit from Guild Wars 1, that gives you that DR. And this is something you've always got to consider with Rev. Rev always has 2 heal skills. So something like this that go, oh, there's no Conduit removal on this, or like, oh, you know, this is almost a bit situational to an extent, and that's definitely true, right? But you're always going to have another heal skill, and that's like an inherent advantage of Rev that really kind of allows it to sustain itself better, right? And while you'll see these heal skills kind of a bit of like specialization to them. However, I think this is actually a very strong effect. You're not going to be unhappy to have that. And there's honestly some stuff you can kind of cheese in PvE probably with this, because of course there's, you know, potentially attacks that are going to hit you really, really hard, but you pop this, all of a sudden you're going to have a much easier time actually surviving like a really big hit. Again, the really obvious one is something like Ceres, right? This will like really help you survive like a massively damaging attack, especially if you've got protection up, maybe a little bit of barrier as well. And yeah, in PvP competitive modes, you're going to be surviving massive nukes. If you're getting focused, you can use this to heal yourself back up, but also deny incoming damage. A little bit tricky to... I'm not sure what kind of build will be using Centaur. Look, unless it's some kind of really degenerate bunker build. But yeah, hey, look, that is a possibility. But yeah, cool skill. I do like the design here with this resonance type ability. So... Beguiling Haze, this is the next one. And also, bear in mind, guys, because this is a Rev, you always have these, right? Like, I think that's worth noting. Of course, with all the other elite specs, you can kind of mix them and match them, but you have to commit to the entity stance, right? So it's a big commitment. Now, these skills are powerful, but you have to bear that in mind with Rev as well, because that is almost like the gimmick of Rev, is that you have to commit to all of the utility skills that you want. So... send an unblockable fragment of RAZAH towards a targeted opponent. If the fragment reaches its target, shadow step to the enemy, dealing damage and dazing them. If it hits, you can use the skill up to 2 more times with no energy cost or cast time. Daze is not inflicted again when targeting the same target. So what's kind of cool about that is that you can essentially kind of like teleport around quite a lot here, right? Because you'll be able to like retarget different players and like leap all over the place. Or, again, kind of like stick to someone. Big time with this. And, of course, get a little bit of damage off at the same time. And the resonance here is if you've got Assassin Stance, so that's Shiro, you have a ground-targeted AoE. Really cool. So this is, like, really cool design, in my opinion, because that kind of changes the way you use this skill a lot. Right? Because the difference between being able to only port to an ally and then maybe being able to use this to leap up a cliff, for example, or like leap over terrain and stuff like that, or use it as like a pure mobility ability, just to, out of combat essentially, like as a movement skill, is a big deal. Really cool. Do like that, and yeah, nice to kind of keep the daze in check. But bear in mind, because it's unblockable and the first hit is a daze, you can use this to say interrupt a block, right? Let's say someone's blocking. And this is kind of what I meant. Very PvP coded, right? Teleport to someone, rotate around the map, right? Very, very PvP coded ability. Swap that in with Shiro. Great mobility. Great shutdown and punish on defensive block skills to kind of bust through people's defenses. Really cool. And I do actually kind of want to show this ability. We can kind of catch up on the heal skill. You can see the heal skill there. You can see being used here in just a moment. Here we go. Go. Use the heal skill. No? I keep skipping over it. We got to be patient, guys. Whoa, there you go. Whoa. Look at that. We love to see that. Incredible stuff. So you can see those hands going around there. Oh yeah, I guess it should be... I should be noted, I did forget to mention this. So you will also heal allies around you during the channel if you have that Centaur stance. So that's why he was going over to heal those golems. The next ability... is going to be Beguiling Haze that we already kind of saw. But here's what it looks like. You kind of send out your RAZAH fragment, and then if it reaches, you teleport over there. And then you can see here that the skill kind of flips over, and you'll be able to use it more times. Right, so you can see here, we're going to go use. Boom, we're in. And then we can press it again, and you can see, right? Look, with no cooldown, we're able to very quickly leap. So you can stick to targets, you can very quickly redirect. Amazingly cool PvP ability, right? Super cool PvP skill on the entity stance. Let's see what's going to be up next. Is going to be the Dwarf ability. And this is one that's utilizing that stun break mechanic, where if it stun breaks, it has an additional cost. So let's see what the Chalice one is going to be. Use it, come on. Show us the tooltip. So this is Gladiator's Defense, which is break out of stun, damaging and weakening enemies around you. You gain boons, resolution, and resistance if you hit someone. And if, this is the conditional, right? If you stun break, it costs 20 more energy. So in other words, you can use this just to apply weakness and give yourself boons, like resolution and resistance, which is actually really nice, especially in PvP. Like I said, guys, right? Really strong effect. But if you have a stun break, it's going to drain energy. And again, potentially have, looks like a pretty short cooldown too, right? On that. So yeah, really powerful ability. Very multifaceted, deep ability to use. A lot of different situations you'd use this. Using it for resistance and weakness is 100% valid. Using it for the stun break is also relevant as well. So that's big. And of course, this ability gets really nifty as well if you have Chalice, because then it goes a little bit further. It says, if Legendary Dwarf Stance is equipped, the additional energy cost for breaking stuns is reduced by 100%, as it turns out. Again, that might be tuned on differently in game modes. And the boons are also granted to allies in the radius around you. Imagine if it also stun break everyone too. That would be crazy. But it's just going to give AoE resistance and resolution to all of your team, which is a very nifty effect, 100%. Like, giving AoE resistance is not to be sniffed at. Again, that allows your allies to ignore weakness, ignore cripple, ignore chill, and so on and so forth. Slow, right? Blind, you know, the list goes on. Immobilize. So a really good effect there, both offensively with the weakness and the stun break, and of course defensively as well. So this is a very, very powerful ability, and again, definitely rewards you for going for that dwarf there. But even if you, it's worth noting, right? Even without that, even if you say you're playing assassin stance, right, in your off legend, it's still highly potent. As well, it's a good stun break, and it's also, if you think about it, what I typically call a true stun break, because immobilize is of course really powerful in competitive modes. So if you get immobilized, it's almost like being stunned sometimes, but because this is going to give you that resistance, it's going to true stun break you, because it's going to allow you to get out of that immobilize as well, which is actually a pretty big deal. Especially in kind of PvP and World as well. Pretty good. Oh, brief interruption in your YouTube slop delivery to say thank you to Crew for the raid and for the birthday wishes. Thank you very much, guys. Because yes, I am now older. I'm old enough to be watching this, watching Hexeater Vortex. Okay, look, I'll tell you what, I'm old enough to remember this skill from Guild Wars 1. Okay, so this is the condition damage one, of course, associated with Malix, and this is kind of a cool one too, right? Very reminiscent of how it was in Guild Wars 1. What's going on here? I will tell you. Hexeater Vortex. Remove conditions on yourself. Then fire projectiles that inflict conditions at random enemies within your radius based on the number of conditions removed. This is just straight off the bat, really powerful. 5 condis removed on a short cooldown, because again, you know, you're a rev, so you have energy and cooldown. So 5 condis, and that will give you up to 6 projectiles with 1 stack of torment each, with a little bit of a damage pip on there as well. Really good ability. Now, bear in mind is that if you have multiple targets, it will kind of spew those off to, like, you know, random enemies around you. But here's the thing. If you spec into Malix, check this out. If Legendary Demon Stance is equipped, the maximum number of projectiles is always fired regardless of conditions, and all projectiles are fired at the closest enemy. So that's going to be a big smash of torment directly into someone's face. And you also have that really powerful condition removal. I mean, that is very strong. I imagine it will be probably 3 in PvP. 5 in PvP would be absolutely insane, I think, to be honest, but maybe it has to be because of the projectiles. I don't know how that's going to work. They might have to like scale this in an interesting way, because that is a crazy strong ability. Maybe the cooldown or the energy cost is going to be the lever they choose to balance it. But yeah, this is going to be your DPS spell in PvE as well, obviously, spamming up that torment. Because again, this is definitely a build that could work with, say, Assassin stance, 100% with Demon stance as well, delivering that DPS. Hopefully not Bunker, hopefully not Bunker Rev. Because listen, it's always Rev builds, man. Like Bunker Rev, it is, you do not want to see that, trust me. If you see that in the PvP meta, it is time to log out. But yeah, really cool ability here. For kind of feasting on all of those conditions, and kind of makes up for the lack of cleanse on the heal skill here as well. Like, Revenant does sometimes struggle with Conduit cleanse, and having a really powerful cleanse ability is certainly going to help out with that a fair bit. So yeah, you can see, we'll just have a look at this ability once again. You can see a really cool animation, kind of that orange of RAZAH there, the entity from the mists, and then firing out those projectiles over there, getting that torment and a little bit of damage going on some of those golems there. So yeah, really cool, really thematic ability from that one. And I actually want to show you guys, look, I want to show you what happened when they moused over this on stream. I might have to briefly hide the Twitch chat here to show you guys this. I'm hiding Twitch chat. Look, they're gone. Check this out. What is that? It doesn't even fit on their screen. Seriously. Look at that, guys. The tooltip actually goes from the top of the monitor they're using all the way to the bottom and like clips off the screen. I don't know if you can see it here, but look, the texture they have for tooltips actually runs out. I shit you not. They don't have enough tooltip to cover the tooltip. And I believe they are going to change this to basically, I think, only show the relevant part, I think. Is what they're gonna do. But yeah, that's quite the meme there. But how does this ability work? Well, I'm glad you asked. So, what you do is the following. Let's take a look. You spawn a fragment of RAZAH at your targeted locations, the ground targeted ability. Both you and the fragment attack with a scythe, damaging and inflicting conditions on foes at your locations. Gain might for each enemy struck. This skill gains bonus effects depending on the legend equipped in the slot. And you can see here that this skill is unique per game mode. So yeah, look, there's gonna be some balance going on there. But so the base effect, no matter what you get all the time, is gonna be a bit of damage. So power damage, might, and bleeding. So it has that hybrid element too. It's going to be 5 targets per side. And this is cool, by the way, you can double hit. So let's say, again, you're in a 1v1 in PvP. You and the fragment can hit the same target, which is a really cool dynamic way to use this ability. You can use it as a ranged pressure. You could use it on one player while also counter-pressuring around yourself, or you could attempt to hit an opponent and also kind of move in and hit them with both for double the effect as well. So that's pretty cool. And then we can see the different effects here. In Assassin stance, the skill deals increased damage. Apply additional conditions to enemies that are struck by both you and the fragment. So you're really leaning into that. So you get big damage for being in Shiro, and if you multi-hit, you get Immobilize. Really cool. Again, like a super skill-testing PvP ability, I think, so really exciting there. So you really want to lock down your target with this elite and then blast them with your power attacks to finish them off. Legendary Demon Stance, again, Conduit here. You and the fragment shatter after the initial attack, dealing additional damage and confusion to enemies. So it will explode, and then you'll get some AoE confusion as well. Again, you can multi-hit, so that's potentially like a good 6 stacks of confusion going on there. In Centaur stance, you heal allies in range of you and the fragment. For each enemy struck, remove conditions from yourself. So again, big Conduit cleanse there, right? Because it can hit 5 targets, so you can remove 5 conditions. And potentially even more, right? Because you can hit 5 around you and 5 somewhere else. So you can get a lot of condies removed there and a very significant heal, like sustaining you a lot. So it's kind of a big deal. And of course, you'll be healing allies as well doing that. So a little bit of group sustain. Not sure if they, yet again, because there's no quickness or alacrity on this build. So this is not going to be a heal build in PvE, and there isn't really a lot of boon support, so I struggle to see it being a thing elsewhere, and that's why I'm, you know, slightly worried, you know, at maybe some kind of bunkery stuff going on, but, you know, look, what could possibly go wrong? Big Conduit cleanse there. And in the Dwarf stance, super powerful effect. Check this out. You gain boons when this skill begins casting. Enemies struck by both you and the fragment are additionally stunned. So again, you have that overlap effect, and you're going to get a stun. And then you're also going to get stability, resistance, and resolution at the same time when you go ahead and pop that ability. And again, this is a short cooldown, right? Because we're playing Revenant here. Like, always remember that, guys. We're playing Rev. So Rev has different rules because they're limited by both energy and cooldowns. So you will be able to use this ability pretty damn frequently. And it's potent. It's going to proc on elite activations, relics potentially, traits obviously can activate off that as well. Whatever, you know, whatever you got cooked up, it's going to activate on that. And these are potent effects, in my opinion, to use there. So this legend, I think, has some pretty high potential to see play on, I think, a good chunk of builds there as well. And yeah, I do like that the elite skill activates no matter what, right? Like, no matter what legend you've got, you are going to have a cool effect. And of course, it's going to synergize with whatever build that you end up going with there. So yeah, I'm actually really happy with these utility skills. I think they're really exciting. I think they're, to be honest, they're some of the best utility skills, maybe even the best utility skills that have actually been designed, I think, for the elite specs and Vision of Eternity. These are, I think these are really fun and really interactive, which is exactly the kind of thing that I love to see. Let's move on to the traits. Oh, actually, wait, we have to show this because it looks pretty cool. Let's take a look. Here we go. Oh, boom! And you can see there is the Malix, because we're in Malix, right? We're getting like a cool purple explosion for the confusion. So you can see there, a bunch of confusion going off. Barely missing there, in fact. Love to see that. And let's see if we can see, like, you can see the bleeding and confusion being applied. Let's get in there. Surely we can see the double hit. Show us the double hit. Boom. You can see that? That's the immobilize there on the Shiro. How that one works. And of course, it's going to do more power damage. And there you go. Boom. Big immobilize there. And of course, we're also generating a lot of might there as well, guys. You can see a lot of the might going there. And of course, you're getting that double hit too. So it's really going to encourage you to actually get that multi-hit. So here's the Centaur. Boom. You can see like a burst of healing magic emerging from the player when you use the Twin Moon Sweep. And then the Dwarf one. Boom. Not much of an animation. Oh, yeah, you have some, like, bricks that fall down. I was like, where's the animation there? You can see some bricks kind of fall down. You get those boons, resistance, a little bit of stability, and resolution, too. Also a powerful effect, to be fair. But, of course, you know, it's going to be very much dependent on what kind of build you go for. That's also going to affect your elite skill. But yeah, really cool with those utilities. Let's talk about the traits here. So, of course, the first one, as usual, we know the drill. That's just kind of going over the elite spec and what it does. So, these traits are pretty exciting. Let's take a look. So, the first kind of set, the adept traits, these are all about that F2, about cosmic wisdom and affinity. So, number one, conductive armaments. Gain affinity while using a weapon skill that costs energy. This is a big deal because weapon skills typically have a relatively low energy cost, so this makes it really easy to build up affinity. Just a quick reminder on what affinity does. Affinity gives you extra duration on your cosmic wisdom passives. So all of the passives here, the extra condies you get in Malix, the extra stats you get, and the little scythes that pop up on Dervish, all of that is going to last for longer. 1 second per affinity, up to 3 at base. And this is going to make it very easy and very cheap to build that up, because if you have to use utility skills, that's not entirely free to do that, right? It's kind of relatively expensive. This makes it trivial. So super impactful trait. Super impactful trait there. Ethereal Purification. Remove conditions from yourself when you reach maximum affinity and when you activate Cosmic Wisdom. And this is, again, I think kind of a PvP thing, or some really heavy Condi fights in PvE. That's actually a very powerful effect, because gaining affinity, again, it's not trivial, but it's not that hard if you're rotating through utility skills and so on. And 2 Condis removed is actually quite nice, and especially, again, you can use your Cosmic Wisdom. That's going to give you even more Condi removal. And then another one here that is also very impactful to your build approach is going to be Expanded Consciousness. Your maximum affinity is increased. Love to see that. I love traits that operate this way. And you get an extra 2. So that means that your extra bonus duration on your affinity is potentially going up to 5. That does mean you have to cycle through quite a lot of abilities to actually get value out of that, which again is non-trivial without conductive armaments. And it is also very important to kind of remind here that when you swap legends, you do lose your affinity. So this is kind of like a use it or lose it, right? Like you do have to kind of pick and choose where you want to dump your affinity, because also the cooldown on Cosmic Wisdom is also not the shortest. It's a 20-second base, but of course more on that in a moment. But I do like the design here. I don't want to talk too much about balance here. I don't want to talk too much about balance because, again, tuning can happen. I'm talking about design, and I actually quite like the overall design of these traits so far. We have Bolstered Bonds. This is going to be the minor master trait here, which is gain attributes based on your equipped legends. That's kind of what we saw here, right? This is the extra stats that you get while the legend is active, but this is now like just when the legend is active. This is like a pure stat stick. So in other words, while you are in Shiro, 120 power. While you're in Centaur, 120 healing. When you're in Legendary Demon stance, 120 condition damage. Legendary Dwarf, 120 toughness. And then Legendary Entity stance, 50 to all attributes. And bear in mind, that's while equipped. So if you have RAZAH, you just like, boom, you just got 50 all stats. You've got like an extra piece of gear, right? If you've got Legendary Assassin, you've always got 100 and 120 power. And then when you're in that legend, you're also getting another 50%. So that's going to be 75 all stats on Legendary Entity. And bear in mind, that's going to stack with Form of the Dervish for another 100. So do not underestimate some of this, guys. Like, this is a big old stat stick. This is a big old stat stick. It just increasing your potency there. Very strong. And you know what? I can like it. I actually do like that this is, depending on what you pick, you're going to get some kind of passive value. I did kind of complain about it being too passive, but actually I don't mind this in a trait form, especially like a minor trait, right? This feels very fitting for a minor trait to me. You know what I mean? Just having like a little bit of extra value, something to think about when you're picking your build, right? Like, oh, what do I want to go for, right? Like, and it's going to just augment what you're trying to do, right? Because all these stats make sense for the individual legend. Next up is going to be the master traits. So these are also cool, especially this one. Recurring Insight. When you swap legends, reduce the recharge of Cosmic Wisdom for each point of affinity you had before swapping. So the recharge reduced is going to be 2 seconds. So that's going to be, if you just take this and you have 3 affinity, that will then get rid of 6 seconds of the cooldown, which is a big deal. That's basically 1/3 of the cooldown is going to be gone. And again, this will be pretty easy to meet this condition, especially if you have conductive armor. So that's going to massively reduce the cooldown on your Cosmic Wisdom, allowing you to have much higher uptime. And you could also take the approach of Expanded Consciousness, which is going to halve the cooldown if you max out your affinity before rotating back over. And that's kind of doable, especially in PvP when you're going to be cycling your heal skill, like potentially like, evasion, phase traversal, right? Like you're going to be cycling through a lot of these skills relatively frequently. So you can meet that condition pretty well and therefore have like really high uptime on your Cosmic Wisdom if that's going to be the kind of approach you want to take, getting those passive bonuses out as much as you possibly can. But yeah, this is a very solid trait in my opinion. It's a simple design, but it's impactful to your build. It like really makes you think about affinity, and you are going to utilize affinity in a different way. So I do like this this trait as well. Really cool, especially because the other two are pretty different. So Lingering Determination. If you have at least the listed amount of affinity, it's not listed here, but it's 3. you regain affinity afterwards. So basically, you're going to get a guaranteed affinity point immediately, making it easier to build up to max affinity when you swap. Because bear in mind, you lose affinity when you swap, right? So this would set you to 1 if you end on 3. So it's a little bit like the invocation trait, right? That gives you energy in a way. Heal yourself and gain endurance while gaining affinity. Listen, whenever I see something like this, I just have kind of like Vietnam-style flashbacks of Ventari Bunker Rev. And we're saying, and then we're saying like, uh-oh, guys, what's going on? We're seeing like the 75% DR. We're seeing the extra toughness, all the boons. I'm scared, guys. Endurance gain, self-healing. So hopefully that doesn't end up being, yeah, the salvation. Oh, the salvation trait line. No, keep it away from me. I don't want to see that. So hopefully we don't end up going that direction. But yeah, really powerful trait for giving you that self-sustain if you want to. And again, modifies your gameplay a little bit with that affinity refund. Really love to see that. Boundless knowledge. Unique benefits granted by cosmic wisdom have increased effects. So this is just going to be a 50% buff, I believe, to all of that. So yeah, you can see here that the default buff on Form of the Dervish is 100, but with this, it's going to be 150. So just a whopping big stat stick on this. And again, if you're going to be, utilizing this, you're going to be using your Cosmic Wisdom in burst phases, right? So you're going to swap over legends, build up your affinity, pop your Cosmic, get that passive damage bonus off, and then your other skills are also going to have a surge of power as well. Not the most exciting trait in the universe, but obviously has that potency. I think very notably on Form of the Dervish, just think how many stats you're going to have, right? You've got this one, Bolstered Bonds, 50 all stats, right? That's going to go up to 75% when you're in Legendary Entity. And then Form of the Dervish is going to give you 150. That's 225 all stats. Because bear in mind, if you're full Selly, you get like 600, like nearly 700 all stats. I think about that, right? So this is going to give you almost like another third of your all stats, right? If you kind of utilize this. So you're going to be like the uber, you're the uber celestial there. And like, there's definitely going to be some like crazy ass builds involving that, like Rev Spear, obviously, like mace, short bow, all that kind of good stuff. Kind of the hybridy weapons, I think are going to work really well with this type of approach. And you can, like, obviously turbo lean into that with Boundless Knowledge if you like. And we have Numinous Gift, which is going to be the Grand Master minor trait. And it's a standard one. You just get boons depending on which legends you have equipped. So Might for Assassin, Resistance for if you got Malix, Stability if you have Jalis, Protection if you have Ventari, and Fury if you've got the RAZAH, the entity. So bear in mind, this is always, you always have this, and this is depending on which legend you have equipped, not which legend you're in. So you basically get to pick 2 boons that you're going to get on your F2, which does turn your F2 into a bit of a beast. Like, this is like assuming that you took Malix and Jalis, that's resistance and stability on that F2 on a relatively short cooldown. Let's say, you have Malix and Entity, right? That's going to be Fury and Resistance, right? Or it's going to potentially be Might and Fury if you're going Assassin, rather. So some pretty potent combos here. I think there's a very notable synergy, of course, with Resistance, because, of course, the Corruption trait line loves Resistance, especially on kind of like the really tanky, sustainy, kind of brawlery, bruisery style builds. So that's going to have some pretty nice synergy there with the Numinous Gift. Oh, but you thought it was over? No. We actually have some cool Grandmaster traits as well, which I absolutely love to see. First up is going to be Mistfire. Apply conditions to enemies when you disable them. So every time you CC, you're going to get a burn. Damage and daze enemies around you when activating Cosmic Wisdom. Bit annoying there. That's going to be an instant cast AoE daze. It's a small radius though, but definitely a bit of a pain in the ass. But you're going to get that 3 sacks of burning on CC. Powerful trait. Like, the thing that I immediately thought of here was Conduit Rev. Or it's more like Hybrid Rev, really, in PvP, actually. You slap a spear on, and all of a sudden your spear is going to be a CC that applies poison and chill and does some hefty damage as well. Wow, gnarly. And of course, there's a good chunk of rev abilities that operate that way. Shortbow, for example, you can get your, your shortbow 5 off and then smash people with a 7-shot and deal heavy burning, heavy torment damage, and of course that CC as well. Is really, really good, and there's a bunch of options there. It does have an internal cooldown, so you can't do any like star 5 CC shenanigans, but yeah, this is just a proper good bit in the toolkit. And bear in mind that will activate on bosses all the time. So if you end up running this in PvE, it will work, right? Because say you've got a raid boss, it will always activate because when you hit use a CC on like a Defiant enemy, you get procs like this. So just bear that in mind. This could also be a DPS trait with a little bit of CC attached to it as well. And wait, I want to show the icons. The icons are really cute. Look at this. Look at this one. This one's called like twofold embodiment. Look. It's a little dragon with 2 heads. Oh, look at that. That's cool. I do like the artwork quite a lot, actually. Very soothing kind of pink, orange, purple going on here for the color palette there. Really nice artwork once again there for the Conduit. Not sure about the icon. I'm going to be honest, guys. I don't quite get it. I'm not sure how this links to that, but listen, we roll with it. Anyway, back to the traits. Twofold embodiment. Again, a simple one, but one that changes what the class does, which is cool. Using Cosmic Wisdom also grants you the bonuses of your other equipped legend. So essentially, it just says when you press that F2, you get both bonuses, which is potentially very impactful because, again, let's imagine that we were running Dervish and Malix, right? We've got RAZAH and Malix going here. All of a sudden, one, we're getting the stats, condition damage expertise, and then all stats, right? Which again could be enhanced even further by this trait here, Boundless Knowledge. And you're then getting the little scythes that are popping off when you do damage. And you're also getting the random conditions from Malix. Again, you could be combining that with the Assassin for the ferocity. You could be combining it with the Monk for the self-healing, and like any of this stuff, like the boons from the Warrior. So yeah, very potent, right? And again, there's ways you can reduce the cooldown on this, so you could get that really frequently and have super high uptime of both of them at the same time. So, I do say that we could maybe use an extra button to make it feel less passive, but don't mistake that with me saying this is weak. I think this has a lot of potential, actually, in a variety of game modes. I think very obvious to me is that this can work in PvP, I think, but also in PvE as well. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of world versus world cook as well, just because like stats and just doing damage and giving yourself boons is pretty good in those game modes. But yeah, this is not weak. I think this has potential to be very potent, in fact, in a kind of a good amount of builds too. There's a lot of builds where I think this could kind of make sense, and you could use this elite specialization to fulfill your dreams of doing a variety of things. So yep, that's a pretty cool one. Again, it's the type of trait I like. I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I do want to give credit where it's due. I like that it, changes up an important mechanic, right, of the spec. Next, Perpetual Wisdom. The effects of Cosmic Wisdom now last indefinitely, but they drain energy continually while it's active. When you swap legends, gain energy for each point of affinity you had before swapping. So this is a really interesting one because it does come, I think, it's fairly expensive. It basically says, okay, it changes your F2 into a toggle ability like, say, Dwarf Hammers or Facets on Glint. And you get this effect for as long as you're channeling. And it's 3 energy pips down, so you still have 2 pips remaining. And it kind of counteracts that by giving you more energy when you swap. So you're going to start with potentially 75 energy if you've got the 5 affinity trait, or 65 energy if you've only got 3. And then, of course, you're going to have less energy regeneration. It feels relatively expensive to me because these effects, they're good. They are definitely powerful. Especially something like the Dervish, right? Having like all those stats up permanently is pretty nifty. Actually reminds me of how old Malix was. Hey, anyone here remember that, guys? Okay, check that out. Okay, that's kind of interesting. The Malix Elite used to give you more all stats. How weird is that? Of course, no longer. Whoa! Dude, my chair just flopped over. That was mildly horrifying, let me tell you that. A little bonus meme. And yeah, I actually think we should take a look at that. Let's go have a look at this toggle. Let's get to that trait. Because, yeah, I think it does have no cooldown. I think you're absolutely right there. So you can toggle it whenever you want, which does give you a lot of flexibility on using this. I suppose that is a big deal, but let's actually quickly check that. Yeah, you can see here that it's been activated. Okay. Press it. Oh, we might not be able to tell. Yeah, we have God mode on. Yeah, we might not be able to tell if it has no cooldown. It may simply have the. It may just have the 20-second cooldown. Wait, maybe we could. Wait, can we mouse over it actually? Oh, it looks like it still has 20 seconds potentially. Yeah, that would be very strong, especially given that you could like use it with the condition damage thingy. But yeah, an interesting effect, a very interesting effect actually. Of course, very much changes up how this is going to play out, right? Like it fundamentally like flips the mechanic on its head a little bit because you're going to have this drain component and you can kind of think about when you want it. You can like turn it off to get some energy back, but it's very much encouraging you to cycle between legends, right? Like build up your affinity, get value, swap over, and then repeat, and then utilize that additional energy to maintain the channel, drain your abilities, use your utility skills to get that affinity, use your weapon skills, but you're not going to want to be camping too much, because of course you're losing that energy regeneration for keeping this up there as well. Yeah, pretty much. That's the deal. But yeah, I think 3 interesting Grandmaster traits that all do very different things. So overall, I'm actually really happy with the design of the utility skills and the traits. I guess it's kind of like a final conclusion kind of thing would be that I think we need maybe one more button on this spec. Because even though you are getting a lot of very passive value, you're channeling that Guild Wars 1 dervish avatar energy kind of going on there. I think it's maybe a little bit too passive for an elite spec. You know, when we have an elite spec, we want to be excited to press our button, right? Whatever new button we've got, if it's, you know, our Ritualist Shroud, or if it's going to be our little Evoker pet ability, right? Our Paragon, you know, chance, right? Like our profession mechanic. I think it needs to feel a bit more exciting than this. And I don't actually hate the idea of having this here, but I think it needs like an ability that you can use maybe while you're in Cosmic Wisdom to maybe end it early and have like an explosive finale or something like that, right? Like, I think it needs like a one more thing, right? Give it some oomph, give it some impact. But I will say, I actually don't, you know, I think it's not, you know, entirely there yet, but that's what beta's for, right? That's what feedback is for. Which you should give on the forums, guys. That's a wild ride, let me tell you that. But I think there's actually a lot of potential here. I think that conceptually, it's fine. I think the legend design is cool. I think the trait design is cool. I think the idea, the theme is cool. I think it just needs an extra button. And if it gets that extra button, I do believe we're very much in business here. With the Conduit. Very interesting that it doesn't have quickness or alacrity, of course. This is going to be basically a pure DPS spec in PvE. No potential for a healer there. A little bit more potential for kind of a hybrid approach in PvP and World versus World. But I think it's going to be probably in those game modes, like what really screams to me is Condi Rev. But I think there can be power builds too, especially with some of the toolkit that the entity has with that extreme mobility. And of course, some of the kind of the defensive boons, like the utility boons, are also super nice there for giving that defensive potential, that utility potential for the player. It is relatively selfish, that is worth noting. But again, there's something inherently wrong with that, you know, as a spec. It's okay to have some specs be selfish, especially because, like, Revs typically aren't that selfish. Like, obviously, Herald, a lot of baked-in support. Renegade 2, to an extent, of course. And even Vindicator, like, has a lot of potential for that. So I think it's fine for it to actually go this way. But yeah, overall, I think it's pretty cool. Pretty cool elite spec. The Conduit. The Conduit. Very interested to see if they do end up adding something else to this one. But I think that kind of sums up my thoughts on the Conduit Revenant there for Visions of Eternity. So look, You guys know the drill at this point. We're at the end of the YouTube video. This is the part where I tell you to subscribe, to watch my stream on YouTube and Twitch, to leave your comments. Do you really like this? Do you think it needs an extra button? Is it fine as it is? What do you think of the traits? What do you think of the utility skills? What do you think of literally everything? It really is... it's up to you. You know, I want to hear your thoughts as well. And I also want you to buy Visions of Eternity using my referral link. Boom! That was a clean segue, guys. Come on, pat on the back for that one. Very, very nice. But anyway, yep, you get the idea, guys. Engage with the algorithm. Consume. You must consume slop. Social media content. Come back and watch every day. Watch all my other videos and stay tuned for more with Visions of Eternity. So make sure you subscribe, okay, to catch all of it. Don't miss any of it, guys, okay? If you miss it, I mean, look, who knows what could happen? Who knows what you're going to miss out on if you don't watch every video? Okay, right. That's it. I'm done in this one. I'll see you in the next one, okay? Which, coincidentally, we're about to record live on Twitch. Here we go.